Too many women have been taught that being nice is the key to getting love, respect, and appreciation. But the truth is, being too nice can actually hold you back in relationships, friendships, and even your own self-growth. If you constantly put others before yourself, avoid confrontation at all costs, and give more than you receive, you may be sabotaging your own happiness. It's time to break free from the habits that keep you stuck in unfulfilling situations and start standing in your power. Saying yes when you really want to say no is one of the quickest ways to lose yourself in relationships, friendships, and even at work. You may think that being agreeable and accommodating makes you a good person, but in reality, it teaches others that your needs and feelings don't matter. When you always say yes out of guilt, obligation, or fear of disappointing someone, you end up sacrificing your own happiness, time, and energy for people who may not even appreciate it. This habit often comes from a deep desire to be liked and accepted. Maybe you grew up believing that saying no makes you selfish or unkind. Maybe you fear rejection, thinking that if you set boundaries, people will walk away from you. But the truth is, saying yes to everything does not make people respect you. More often leads them to take advantage of you. When you never say no, you teach people that you have no limits, and unfortunately, some will exploit that kindness. It can start small, agreeing to cover a shift at work when you're already exhausted, saying yes to helping a friend move when you had other plans, or going on a date with someone you're not even interested in just because you don't want to hurt their feelings. Over time, this pattern builds resentment because you begin to feel used, unappreciated, and emotionally drained. You might start to wonder why no one ever shows up for you the way you show up for them, but the reality is you haven't given them a reason to. Setting boundaries is not about being rude or dismissive. It's about respecting yourself enough to prioritize your own well-being. People who truly care about you will understand and accept your limits. The ones who get upset, guilt trip you, or try to manipulate you into changing your mind were never there for the right reasons. A simple "no, I can't do that," or "I won't be able to make it" is enough. You don't owe anyone long explanations or justifications. When you start saying no, you may feel uncomfortable at first, but over time, you'll notice a shift. You'll attract people who respect your boundaries. You'll feel more in control of your time and energy. And most importantly, you'll begin to trust yourself more. The people who truly value you will never make you feel bad for putting yourself first. Over-apologizing is a habit that many women develop without even realizing it. You say sorry when you take up space, when you ask for something, when you express your feelings, or even when someone else makes a mistake. It becomes second nature, a reflex that constantly puts you in a submissive position. While it may seem harmless, over-apologizing actually diminishes your confidence and makes others see you as less assertive. This habit often comes from childhood or past experiences where you were made to feel like you had to be overly accommodating to avoid conflict or gain approval. Maybe you were taught that being polite meant always smoothing things over, even when you weren't at fault. Maybe you've been in relationships where speaking up led to arguments, so you learned to apologize just to keep the peace. But constantly saying sorry for things that don't require an apology only reinforces the idea that your presence, your needs, and your voice are inconveniences. Think about how often you say sorry throughout the day. You bump into someone by accident, sorry. You need help with something, sorry to bother you. You express a need or set a boundary, I'm sorry. But it becomes a way of shrinking yourself, of making yourself seem smaller to avoid being seen as demanding or difficult. But the truth is, apologizing excessively does not make you more likable. Instead, it can make others see you as unsure of yourself, making it easier for them to dismiss or take advantage of you. There's a difference between taking responsibility for a mistake and apologizing out of habit. If you genuinely hurt someone, of course, an apology is necessary. But saying sorry just for existing, for having opinions, or for taking up space is something that needs to stop. Instead of sorry for asking, say thank you for your help. Instead of sorry for being late, say thank you for waiting. Instead of sorry for speaking up, say nothing at all, because you don't need to apologize for having a voice. Breaking the habit of over-apologizing takes time, but the first step is awareness. Pay attention to when and why you say sorry, and start replacing it with more confident language. You are not a burden. You do not need to apologize for taking up space, for setting boundaries, or for being yourself. The more you own your presence without feeling the need to shrink, the more people will learn to respect you. Ignoring red flags to keep the peace is one of the most damaging habits you can have in relationships. Deep down, you see the warning signs. You feel that something is off. But instead of addressing it, you brush it aside. You tell yourself it's not a big deal. You convince yourself that you're overreacting. You make excuses for behavior that doesn't sit right with you because you don't want to start an argument, be seen as difficult, or risk losing the relationship. This pattern usually comes from a fear of conflict or rejection. Maybe in the past, when you voiced concerns, you were dismissed, called crazy, or made to feel like you were too sensitive. Over time, you learned that speaking up only caused problems, so you started ignoring the things that made you uncomfortable. But what happens when you ignore red flags? They don't disappear, they grow. What seems like a small issue in the beginning, disrespect, inconsistency, manipulation, turns into something much bigger when left unchecked. Red flags are there for a reason. They are your intuition's way of warning you. Yet so many women ignore them because they want the relationship to work. You hope he will change, that things will get better, that if you just love him enough, he will become the man you need. But love cannot fix fundamental character flaws. If a man shows you early on that he lacks respect, integrity, or emotional maturity, no amount of patience or understanding will change that. You have to stop prioritizing the illusion of peace over your own emotional well-being. Confronting issues doesn't mean you're being dramatic or unreasonable. It means you value yourself enough to demand honesty, respect, and consistency. A man who cares about you will not dismiss your concerns or make you feel guilty for having boundaries. He will listen, acknowledge, and make the necessary adjustments. But a man who wants to manipulate or take advantage of you will gaslight you, tell you you're overthinking, or make you feel bad for questioning him. Trust what you see. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it just because you don't want to deal with discomfort. It's better to walk away early than to invest years into a relationship that was doomed from the start. Ignoring red flags now will only lead to heartbreak later. Respect yourself enough to acknowledge the signs, act accordingly, and walk away when necessary. Being afraid to speak your mind is a habit that keeps you stuck in relationships where your needs are not met. You hold back your thoughts, feelings, and opinions because you don't want to seem difficult or push someone away. You tell yourself that it's better to stay quiet than to risk conflict. Maybe you've been in situations where expressing yourself led to arguments, criticism, or even being ignored, so you learn to suppress your voice. But staying silent does not protect you, only makes you invisible. When you don't express your needs, people assume you don't have any. When you don't set boundaries, people assume they can do whatever they want. When you don't speak up, people assume their actions don't bother you. Over time, this leads to frustration and resentment. You start feeling unappreciated, unheard, and emotionally drained. But the truth is, people cannot read your mind. If you don't communicate what you need, you can't expect others to just know. The fear of speaking up often comes from a deeper fear of rejection or abandonment. You might think, if I tell him how I feel, what if he gets upset? What if he leaves? But if being honest about your feelings pushes someone away, that means they were never truly invested in you to begin with. A man who cares about you will want to know what's on your mind. He will appreciate your honesty and work with you to strengthen the relationship. The right person will not see your voice as a problem. They will see it as a valuable part of who you are. Speaking your mind does not mean being aggressive or rude. It means being clear, direct, and honest about what you want and what you won't tolerate. If something bothers you, address it. If you need something from your partner, say it. If you have an opinion, share it. You do not need to water yourself down or make yourself small to keep someone in your life. The right person will love and respect you for exactly who you are, not for how much you can suppress your true self. The more you practice speaking up, the more confident you will become. You will attract people who respect your boundaries and appreciate your honesty. You will no longer feel the need to tiptoe around issues or keep your feelings bottled up. Your voice matters, and you deserve to be heard. Giving too many chances is a habit that keeps you stuck in cycles of disappointment and heartbreak. You keep forgiving, keep overlooking, keep hoping that things will change, even when the evidence shows you otherwise. You tell yourself that everyone makes mistakes, that no one is perfect, and that if you just give a little more time, effort, understanding, things will finally be different. But what really happens, you keep getting hurt, and the same patterns repeat over and over again. This habit often comes from a place of deep empathy and a desire to see the best in people. You believe in their potential, in who they could be if they just tried a little harder. But the problem is, potential is not reality. A man may have all the qualities of someone who could be amazing, but if he is not actively showing up in the relationship with honesty, consistency, and respect, then his potential means nothing. You cannot build a relationship on who someone could be. You have to base it on who they are right now. Each time you give another chance, you send a message that you will tolerate being treated poorly. If he lies and you forgive him without real accountability, he will lie again. If he disrespects you and you let it slide, he will continue to push your boundaries. If he neglects your needs and you stay silent, he will assume you don't have any. People do what they are allowed to do. A man will only value and respect you as much as you value and respect yourself. Forgiveness is important, but it should not be mistaken for tolerance. There is a difference between giving grace to someone who made an honest mistake and repeatedly excusing toxic behavior. A man who truly cares about you will not need endless chances to treat you right. He will recognize his mistakes, take real steps to correct them, and show you through his action, not just words, that he values the relationship. If you find yourself constantly justifying why you should stay, constantly making excuses for his actions, or constantly feeling disappointed, that is a sign you are giving too many chances. A man who truly wants to be with you will not need to keep proving himself because his actions will already align with his words. You deserve to be with someone who chooses you the first time, not someone who only appreciates you after multiple wake-up calls. People pleasing in relationships is a habit that drains your energy and leaves you feeling unfulfilled. You put his needs before your own, say yes when you really want to say no, and go out of your way to make him happy, even at your own expense. You believe that if you're accommodating enough, if you're easygoing, if you never cause problems, then he will see your worth and love you more. But the reality is, people pleasing does not create healthy relationships. It creates imbalance, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. This habit often stems from a deep fear of rejection or abandonment. Maybe you've been in relationships where you felt like you had to earn love by being perfect. Maybe you grew up in an environment where your feelings weren't prioritized, so you learned to suppress them in order to keep the peace. Whatever the reason, you've been conditioned to believe that being agreeable and self-sacrificing will make someone love you more. But in reality, it only teaches them that your needs are secondary. When you constantly prioritize his happiness over your own, you send the message that your feelings, desires, and boundaries don't matter. You train him to expect a version of you that is always available, always understanding, always giving, over time, this leads to an unhealthy dynamic where he takes more than he gives, not necessarily because he's a bad person, but because you have never required anything different. A man will not value you more because you exhaust yourself trying to keep him happy. He will value you when he sees that you respect yourself enough to express your needs and set clear boundaries. Confidence is attractive. A woman who knows what she wants, who is not afraid to say no, and who stands firm in her worth is someone that a man respects and cherishes. You do not have to prove your worth by bending over backward for someone. You do not have to be everything to a man just to keep him around. The right person will not want you to diminish yourself to fit their expectations. They will appreciate you for who you are, not for how much you sacrifice. True love does not require losing yourself in the process. You deserve a relationship where your needs are met, where you feel valued, and where your happiness is just as important as his. Apologizing for everything, even when it's not your fault, is a habit that slowly chips away at your confidence and self-respect. You say, I'm sorry for things that don't require an apology. You take responsibility for his bad moods, his mistakes, and even his disrespectful behavior. When conflict arises, your first instinct is to smooth things over, even if it means blaming yourself for something you didn't do. You may not even realize how often you say it because it has become second nature, but every unnecessary apology diminishes your power and reinforces the idea that your feelings don't matter as much as keeping the peace. This habit often develops from past experiences where expressing yourself led to rejection, arguments, or emotional withdrawal. Maybe you were made to feel like you were too much or that your emotions were a burden. Over time, you learned that taking the blame was the easiest way to avoid conflict, even if it was unfair. But constantly apologizing does not build healthy relationships. It teaches people that they don't have to be accountable for how they treat you. If you always take responsibility, why would he ever feel the need to? A confident woman does not apologize for things that are not her fault. She does not shrink herself just to make someone else comfortable. She does not feel guilty for setting boundaries, having standards, or expressing her feelings. When you stop over-apologizing, you reclaim your power in relationships. You stop carrying the emotional weight of someone else's actions. You begin to trust yourself and recognize that you are not responsible for how others choose to behave. The next time you feel the urge to say, I'm sorry for something you didn't do wrong, pause and ask yourself, do I really need to apologize for this? If he forgot to call, if he disrespected your boundaries, if he's in a bad mood, that has nothing to do with you, none of that is your responsibility. Instead of saying, I'm sorry, start saying things like, I understand, or that wasn't okay with me. Changing the way you communicate will shift the dynamic in your relationships and help you attract people who respect you. You deserve to be with someone who takes responsibility for their actions and does not expect you to bear the weight of their emotions. Your voice, your feelings, and your experiences matter, and you should never feel the need to apologize for simply being yourself. It's time to stop being the nice girl who gets overlooked, overused, and underappreciated. Instead, be the woman who values herself, sets strong boundaries, and attracts people who respect and cherish her. Being kind and being a pushover are not the same thing. So let go of these habits and step into your power.